A physical injury leaves a visible mark. People can see the depth of a cut and understand the treatment required. But when the injury is internal, the surface remains undisturbed, and the damage stays hidden from view. The World Health Organization classifies major depressive disorder as the most frequent health issue on Earth. In Portugal alone, it affects roughly 10% of the population. To explain it to the outside world, for a university student, it often looks like this. The alarm rings, class starts in 20 minutes, but their body refuses to move. They might make it to campus, sit in a crowded lecture hall, and even smile when spoken to, all while feeling completely severed from the people around them. Because there is no cast or bandage, this physical and emotional paralysis is routinely mistaken for a choice. The reality is that major depressive disorder is a documented public health emergency, playing out quietly in dorm rooms and libraries. A university group known as MultiStudents set out to answer a surprisingly complex question: do we really understand major depressive disorder? They found that the condition operates like an invisible scar, a profound internal pain that a person feels vividly, yet struggles to explain to the outside world. Because the wound cannot be seen, society often misreads the symptoms. Observers frequently mistake the medical reality for ordinary sadness, a temporary lack of motivation, or a simple desire for attention. This gap between the actual experience and public perception leaves the individual enduring it completely isolated. For university students carrying this weight, the external environment frequently amplifies the internal pain. They are routinely told the struggle is a product of their imagination, or that they are merely experiencing a phase of homesickness that will pass with time. The inability to function is often framed as a character flaw, with peers dismissing the condition as laziness or an unwillingness to try. Some go further, assuming the student is following a modern social trend or faking the illness to gain a specific advantage. When every attempt to express suffering is met with judgment, the student often chooses silence, hiding the reality of the illness to avoid further stigma. Stripping away those misconceptions reveals a stark clinical reality. Looking at these student study notes on mental health misconceptions, you can see the specific phrases people hear. They are told it is all in their head, that they are just lazy, or that depression is simply a trendy excuse. Every time a student hears they need to try harder, it adds a thick layer of shame to an already exhausting biological reality. As this project planning document states, we must demystify these stereotypes. Stigmatizing major depression treats a medical condition like a character flaw, and that discrimination is exactly what prevents students from seeking help. This important note from the clinical planning guide: people are not their illness. A student experiencing depression is a person managing a health condition, and maintaining their humanity and dignity is crucial. Admitting you are in pain and asking someone to help you carry that weight is a concrete sign of resilience. Major depressive disorder exists as a recognized medical condition. It is classified in the DSM-5-TR as a specific mood disorder, meaning its symptoms go beyond temporary emotional shifts and change how a person thinks and functions. This document identifies 3 clinical markers that define the disorder. Duration requires symptoms to last for weeks or months. Intensity means the symptoms interfere with daily life. And pervasiveness shows the condition affecting every aspect of a student's existence. Because the depth of this wound is not physically apparent, society often misinterprets a systemic biological illness as a temporary emotional phase. This lack of recognition allows the condition to develop without intervention. University life is a high-pressure social environment where students often feel a requirement to project a constant image of success and functionality. This pressure leads many to experience anhedonia. This is the neurological inability to feel joy or interest in activities that were once meaningful. A student might keep attending classes or social events, but they feel nothing during the experience. Maintaining a functional outward appearance while feeling internal emptiness requires significant physical energy. The brain is effectively working to simulate a range of emotions that it is not actually producing. The danger of high-functioning depression lies in this performance. The effort required to wear the mask drains the final reserves of energy a student has. Eventually, the public performance becomes impossible to maintain. The private reality of the disorder involves total isolation, unread messages, and the physical inability to leave one's bed. To understand what is actually happening in the brain and body, we have to look at the clinical profile. Major depressive disorder requires a specific set of symptoms lasting for at least 2 weeks that actively interfere with a person's daily life. The official definition and symptoms outlined here center on 2 main experiences: a persistently low mood and anhedonia, which is a total loss of the ability to feel pleasure or interest. A student might completely abandon a sport or hobby they used to love because it simply stops registering as enjoyable. This diagram illustrates the cognitive deficits involved. The disorder actively impairs working memory and executive function. When a student stares at a textbook and comprehends nothing, they aren't choosing to be distracted. Their attention center is effectively failing to fire. Then come the vegetative alterations. A person might experience terminal insomnia, waking up hours early unable to fall back asleep, alongside severe changes in their appetite and physical weight. When you combine profound fatigue, cognitive shutdown, and physical sleep disturbance, you are looking at a systemic medical event rather than a fleeting mood swing. In a university environment, these symptoms stack on top of each other. Failing focus leads to academic decline, causing intense, disproportionate guilt, pushing them further into social isolation. This state is explained by the biopsychosocial model. Major depressive disorder arises from a complex interaction between genetic predispositions, negative cognitive patterns, and environmental triggers like academic failure or financial pressure. This document details physical symptoms like psychomotor retardation, where movement slows down, and exhaustion that rest cannot repair. The disorder also impairs the prefrontal cortex, causing cognitive paralysis. Basic tasks like reading or deciding what to eat feel overwhelming. Because of this multi-layered complexity, the disorder is highly unpredictable. A person with a seemingly perfect life, strong grades, and close friends can still experience a severe depressive episode. You cannot simply decide to fix a complex biological and psychological system. Professional intervention is required to repair it. The first step toward recovery often starts from the outside. For a friend or family member, simply being present and listening without judgment is far more effective than trying to offer advice or quick solutions. The invisible nature of the condition allows societal myths to flourish, which often increases the burden on the person suffering. Clinically, the idea that recovery requires only positive thinking is inaccurate. The disorder involves measurable neurochemical changes. The data also contradicts the idea that depression is a personal failure. It affects individuals across all levels of resilience, reflecting biology. When students internalize these external myths, it creates self-stigma. They begin to believe false narratives that they are simply lazy or a burden to their peers. These misconceptions create tangible barriers to recovery. They convince students that they do not deserve professional help, trapping them in a cycle of untreated suffering. Symptoms like social withdrawal and self-stigma create a self-reinforcing loop. When a person believes they are a burden and lacks the energy to communicate, initiating their own recovery becomes a hurdle that a compassionate external perspective can help clear. Effective intervention avoids unsolicited advice or demands to change one's mood. Treating a person's illness as a problem to be solved quickly can increase their sense of isolation. Productive help involves presence and listening. Acknowledging their internal pain is a clinically documented reality provides a foundation to feel understood. Professional recovery often starts when the individual's unseen struggle is finally acknowledged by someone else. Major depressive disorder is highly treatable. Professional intervention is the standard for reclaiming functionality and well-being. Evidence-based therapies work to rebuild cognitive resilience. These interventions, sometimes supported by medication, are designed to systematically restore neurochemical balance. We can contribute to this process by challenging our own preconceptions about mental health and encouraging others to seek professional resources if they are suffering. The wound may be invisible to others, but the recovery process is firmly based on concrete scientific principles. No student has to remain at a standstill alone. Major depressive disorder is a documented, widely recognized medical illness. The World Health Organization classifies depression as the single most prevalent health issue on the globe. In Portugal, 10% of the entire population is directly affected by this disorder. This diagram shows the clinical threshold for a diagnosis. The symptoms must persist for at least 14 consecutive days and significantly disrupt a person's ability to function. This clinical duration marks the difference between a difficult few days and a disruption that physically alters a person's psychological and physiological systems. The disorder triggers a systemic breakdown, altering mood, distorting thought patterns, and impacting bodily functions and behavior simultaneously. The physical toll is relentless, involving a heavy, constant fatigue that rest cannot fix, while sleep patterns and appetite swing toward extreme highs or lows. Cognitively, the individual is weighed down by overwhelming, disproportionate guilt, a sense of worthlessness, and a documented inability to concentrate on basic tasks. In severe cases, this internal collapse leads to recurrent thoughts of death or suicidal ideation. The mind and body are under a coordinated, exhausting attack from within, turning the simple act of existing into a daily struggle. When this clinical breakdown occurs in the high-pressure environment of a university campus, the effects are immediate and measurable. Because the disorder impairs working memory and executive function, a student's ability to retain information vanishes, leading to a sharp decline in academic performance. The lack of physical energy and heavy emotional toll often force the student to withdraw from peers and social activities to preserve what little energy they have left. They exist in a state of feeling perpetually overwhelmed, exhausting themselves just to maintain a normal appearance in class while their internal systems are failing. Because this condition is a measurable medical disruption rather than a character flaw, the same systems that break down can be recalibrated. Data suggests that with evidence-based treatment, 80 to 90% of people recover their quality of life. Psychotherapy works by directly addressing the cognitive deficits and behavior changes mentioned earlier, providing the tools to rebuild internal functions. The invisible scar can heal. The darkness is a symptom of an illness that responds to professional care, not a permanent life sentence. When 3 or more of the clinical criteria align, the need for professional support becomes urgent. These criteria include a persistently depressed mood, anhedonia, and severe loss of energy. Additional indicators are cognitive deficits, major sleep or weight changes, disproportionate guilt, and thoughts of death. Immediate confidential help is available. In Portugal, you can call Voz Amiga or dial SNS 24 and select option 4. The digital platform encuentroUnasaída.pt provides further guidance and access to professional resources. Truly understanding this unseen wound is the first step toward reaching out and speaking up. Recovering from the invisible scar begins by recognizing the illness for exactly what it is.